says I'm live. Am I getting audio? Have I got some audio? Audio. Are you logged in, Franco? Am I getting audio?
Yeah.
Jeepers creepers, folks.
Got it?
I got audio and no audience.
Okay, so you know how I got it? I had to go to the Plant Life Canada page and then click on live.
Yeah,
again.
I know. People are gonna lose the link. But what am I gonna do?
Try to help you.
Yeah, there's nothing to be
Telling you
helped.
how it worked.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we successfully have audio, but we probably lost everyone coming from Facebook. But the important people are here. So that's what counts. Great. Hopefully the important people are here. I only see one. So, my oven is hot, and I'm waiting for more people to join me. Yay, we can hear again! Fantastic. Okay, I'll just start right again because we have all three of my favorite viewers here. So, I will request that my boyfriend who's watching turn his volume down. I can hear it. Right, so what I was saying before when we had no audio, the original link works because I quickly edited it in Facebook. Fingers crossed. Back to the beginning. We are making a recipe from a very popular vegan blog called Bosh. So they have a YouTube channel, they do Instagram, Facebook, they have amazing recipes. All vegan. Most of them are super easy. Some of them are a little bit complicated with a lot of ingredients, but the Bosh recipes always work out for me when I make them. And so recently they put a recipe on their blog page, which is called Spicy Dan Dan Noodles, which is an Asian tradition. I have not looked it up yet. It just looked delicious and I wanted to make it. But I'm also trying to cook a little bit healthier. So I wanted to make a healthy version of this recipe. So we'll go ahead and get started and I'll explain the healthier version as we go along. So one of the first things that this recipe had that I wanted to swap out was ramen noodles. So aside from animal products, ramen noodles are probably like the worst food that you can eat. They're incredibly bad for you. There's tons of oil and bad carbohydrates and all that stuff. So the swap that we're doing for the noodles is spaghetti squash. So I'm going to tilt you guys down. So like I said, we're doing spaghetti squash instead of our noodles. That's our first healthy swap. And basically we've roasted these off and then they strip out as noodles. So if you have never had spaghetti squash before, it's pretty awesome. You basically roast it up and you shred it and it becomes a noodly substance. And nature is so amazing to create a vegetable that just does this. So we've roasted them off according to the directions that were on the little sticker. We've let them cool off. And then now we have a giant bowl of noodles. That's our first swap. So we'll put those aside just over here. And then the other swap I made was going to be in the sauce. So the sauce has quite a bit of sugar and oil, so we're going to reduce that as we go. So for the sauce, we're going to need a 1/4 cup of water. And then we're going to need 2 tablespoons of tahini. So tahini is usually used in usually the only thing I use tahini for is chickpeas. Sorry, I should say hummus with chickpeas. So this is sesame tahini. And we're going to need 2 tablespoons. And I actually have a special tahini spoon because it's got a long handle because tahini is messy. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons, which is a little bit different on my special spoons. So that's about 2 tablespoons there. And then we've got 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So just regular or low sodium is good soy sauce. And we've got 2 tablespoons of that. I think I emptied that out. And then we're going to do 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. So it seems like kind of a weird thing to put tahini in an Asian sauce, but it's giving us that sort of creamy and umami flavor. And then the next ingredient was an entire tablespoon of sesame oil. So I'm actually just going to do half. And what sesame oil is really powerful. So if you ever have a recipe that has sesame oil, you can probably cut it in half. You're still going to get the flavor, but you're going to get, if you're trying to be healthy, you're going to get less of the bad stuff. And then again, the sugar that we're trying to cut out, I think there was a whole teaspoon. So we're just going to go with, this is a half a tablespoon, but we're just going to go with a little bit of sugar. And again, that's just going to give us the balance of flavor that we need to make a really good recipe. And then the last ingredient for the sauce is some chili flakes, which I'm going to put only a little bit in. And then if it's not spicy enough at the end, we can add some more. So we've got everything in there, and you can see that it's going to mix up kind of a creamy sauce. And if you can't get the tahini to incorporate all the way in, that's fine because we're going to cook it off. So that's our sauce. Always prep your stuff first. Now the next switch out that we're going to do is that we're supposed to use in this recipe vegan ground beef. But that is also a highly prepared food, and it's full of oil and calories and stuff like that. So we're actually swapping out the vegan ground beef for some plain tempeh. So this Light Life brand you can get at No Frills. It's amazing. They also have a bacony, smoky one, but this is great. And then what it looks like, this is just a chunk. It ends up in a block like this. So basically, this is kind of like the whole grain version of tofu. So these are fermented soybeans, whereas the tofu is the processed soybeans. And one thing to mention, which I kind of got freaked out when I first bought this stuff, is sometimes tempeh will have a bit of gray coloring to it. And if you see that on the package, even a bit darker than that, it is absolutely fine. What you want to do, which is pretty weird, is the smell test. And if you have a fresh, sort of clean scent to it, it's completely fine. So what we did was we crumbled that up and cooked it. So that is our ground beef substitute. And you'll see I have cooked it off here, and I just put a little bit of tamari and a little bit of our liquid smoke. So we're going to hopefully heat this pan up real quick. You can see on the side, sorry for the angle. So we've got our ground beef that's already been a bit cooked, and we're going to get our mushrooms in there. So I'm going to turn that right up. Whoa, and we got a spinny problem going on here. So we're going to get that all in there. And then we're going to let that cook. I'm going to turn it up pretty high. You can cook it at a medium. So the tempeh I cooked at pretty high in this pan. I did not use any oil. I just put in the tamari and the liquid smoke. And now we're going to let the mushrooms cook here. So we'll get that high. So then the rest of the recipe that we're going to need basically is our sauce and green onions and our noodles. So the 3 main ingredients, or the 4 main ingredients, I should say, are the noodles, the onions, mushrooms, and the ground vegan beef, or the tempeh, and then our sauce. Another really interesting ingredient that we're going to be using when this cooks down a bit is some Chinese 5-spice. So Chinese 5-spice is made out of star anise, fennel seeds, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. And you wouldn't think, it sounds kind of something that you might use for baking, but it's actually a pretty traditional ingredient in Chinese cooking. And it gives it a really interesting flavor when you're making certain dishes. So that's going to go in a little bit here. So let's just get those cooking in. And the other thing about the Bosh recipe is they cooked everything in separate pans, and they used about a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of oil every time they cooked a new ingredient. So you're adding a whole bunch of calories that you really don't need, and the fat and saturated fat in oil is very bad for you. So we're going to loosen this up a little bit with some water. So that's another great cooking tip as well, is if you are cooking and you don't want to use oil but stuff is sticking to the pan, you can put a little bit of water in to deglaze the pan. Awesome. So this is cooking down. So at this point, when you have the mushrooms, sort of loosened up, the ground beef is already cooked. The next ingredient that we're going to put in is some garlic. So that's a couple of cloves, small cloves of garlic. You can put a lot in if you want. So we're going to throw that in. And then the next thing is some ginger. So I had this frozen. I can't remember what number we're on, but that's another cooking tip, is if you freeze your ginger and then just grate it with a zester or a small grater, it keeps the ginger going when you might not use it very often. So we've got that in there. So we'll just get that mixed. This already smells fantastic. So we've got the ginger and garlic just kind of mixed in there. And then next we're going to sprinkle some of the Chinese 5-spice on there. So it's supposed to be about 1 teaspoon, and I'm just going to shake that out. So you want to, I'm not usually one for measuring, which I just didn't do, but make sure you use a teaspoon or less because that's pretty powerful stuff. Oh, I can smell that for sure. So we've got that all incorporated. And then what we're going to do, just to gel this together and get it all stuck together, we're going to put about 1/3 of the sauce in. So just sort of eyeball that and leave most of the sauce for the last step. So 1/3 of the sauce. I hope I'm eyeballing that correctly. And again, this step is just to sort of bring this stuff together. And then if you're wanting to be really kind of fancy or nice with your presentation, what you can do is we're going to take out a little bit of this stuff to throw on top of our dish. So you would just have to judge that based on how many people you're feeding. Take a little bit out for the top. And then we are going to add our noodles. So there's our spaghetti squash noodles going in there. And I'm going to spread them around a bit so they don't stick. Put them all in there. And one thing I learned with the spaghetti squash, I used to be really impatient and scrape out the spaghetti squash as soon as it was done cooking, but it's really way better to let it cool down. So we're going to try to mix that around. And I can feel it getting stuck, so I'm going to put some more water in with my hands. So the water is just to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. Maybe turn down the heat a little bit. So get that all incorporated. I like the spaghetti squash too because it's a little bit shorter and you don't have super long noodles that you're trying to mix everything in. So there we go. And now we're going to take our green onions. And again, I'm not going to put all of them in. I'm going to leave a little bit behind for the presentation part. So we'll put most of those in. That seems good. everything always looks kind of a little bit fancier when you put green onions on it. So we've got that in there. And then the last step is we're going to put the rest of our sauce in there. And at this point, you would want to double check and taste it and see if you need any salt and pepper or if you want to add more of the spice. I think I'm going to be happy with this spice, so I'm just going to leave it. And then you want to cook this down so that the water evaporates a little bit. I think if you're using real noodles, they're going to pull some of the liquid. You won't really have to stir it much. And then this is it. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So take a look at that. Super easy. And the spaghetti squash really just looks like noodles. And once you have all the flavoring on it, like, you're not even going to notice that that's some sort of healthy substitute. So then for our presentation, we're going to twirl some noodles in here. I can never do the fancy noodle twirl, but we'll try. There. And then what we're going to do is put some of the ground stuff back over top just for a little presentation. And then we have our green onions to make it look fancy. And another thing that's really great for making stuff look fancy is that everything bagel mix that I made in a long ago previous video. So that has the garlic granules, onion, black sesame seeds, white sesame seeds, poppy seeds. It's got, I think I got salt and pepper in there as well. So we're going to put that on. Ooh, this is so good. It's definitely worth the technical difficulties that we all just went through together. So even though it seemed there was a little bit more complex ingredients than most of my recipes, we still got that together pretty fast. Looking fantastic. Let's get the light in the shot. So good. Getting to eat this at the end definitely makes the struggle of going live today worth it. So let's see if this actually, with the healthy alternatives, actually tastes delicious. I think it will. So we've got our bite there. So we've got our mushrooms, onions, we've got our tempeh, and we've got our spaghetti squash noodles. Probably hot. Oh yeah. So that 5 spice really comes through and you get that really authentic flavor. And the spaghetti squash has a little bit more liquid in it, I think, than a noodle would. So the texture of it when you're chewing it is different. It's not exactly the same, but you're getting all this flavor from the sauce and everything. And that's definitely going on the meal plan on a regular basis. I love that. Another good swap is vermicelli noodles. So if you get I think they're Taiwanese version of vermicelli noodles, they're also very low calorie because they're just made out of mung beans and cornstarch. So that's also a healthy alternative, but the spaghetti squash will actually have some nutritional value for you. Amazing. So I will recreate my healthy recipe when I post this video, but check out the Bosh webpage for their spicy Dan Dan noodles. Amazing recipes over there. Thank you for sticking with me through the technical difficulties if you were here for that. And thanks for watching every week. Don't forget to please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. Like the video, share the video, tell people to subscribe to my channel. And always go back to the video and watch it if you want to see how to make this again. Awesome. I'm so excited to eat this. Have a great day, guys. I'll have one more bite on camera and then I'll shut you off. So good. Fantastic. All right, so try your tempeh, try your spaghetti squash, and try this recipe. Bye, guys. All done.